Real estate or stocks? This is one of the oldest debates in personal finance. Older than the internet, older than index funds. Honestly, I imagine two men somewhere in ancient Rome arguing about whether they should buy property or invest in grain trading. Same debate, different currency. And everyone has an opinion. Your uncle says real estate. Your coworker says stocks. The guy at the gym, who, for the record, has invested in neither, says crypto. We're going to ignore that guy today. Let me say this before we go any further. Both real estate and stocks have made people wealthy, and both have financially destroyed people who didn't know what they were doing. The real question, the one almost nobody answers, is which one is right for you and why. That's what we're going to talk about today. Stay with me. This video is going to settle a few arguments. Part 1. The real numbers. Let's start with the numbers. Over the last 100 years, the US stock market, specifically the S&P 500, has delivered roughly 9% to 10% annual returns before inflation and taxes. Well, that's the raw number. US real estate over the same period, roughly 3% to 4% annual appreciation. After inflation, closer to 1%. Wait, Nihat, doesn't that mean stocks win? Hold on, because this comparison is incomplete. Real estate has something stocks generally don't. Leverage. When you buy $100 worth of stock, you need $100. Simple. When you buy a $300,000 property, you might only need $60,000 for the down payment. The bank provides the rest, and you benefit from appreciation on the entire $300,000 asset, not just your $60,000. Let's make it practical. In the stock market, $60,000 growing at 9% annually becomes roughly $330,000 after 20 years. Excellent result. Now take that same $60,000 and use it as a down payment on a $300,000 property. If that property appreciates at only 4% annually, its value could grow to around $650,000 over 20 years. After accounting for mortgage paydown, your equity might be somewhere around $400,000 to $450,000 depending on circumstances. Same starting money, very different outcome. That's the power of leverage. Now, before Team Real Estate starts celebrating, we need to talk about what leverage costs, because this is where many calculations fall apart. Part 2. The hidden costs. This is my favorite part of the conversation, because both sides love showing the highlight reel, like a dating profile. Everyone shows the best photos and conveniently leaves out the arguments with the waiter. Let's start with real estate. Mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and maintenance is never zero. I promise you, something always breaks at the worst possible moment. I once owned a rental property where the boiler failed in January. Of course it was January, not July, not September, January. I paid that bill and thought about it for a very long time. Then there are vacancies. A vacant property isn't producing income. It's still producing expenses. Management fees if you hire help. Legal expenses if tenants become a problem. Renovation costs between tenants. Let me be very clear. Real estate is not passive income. Real estate is a business that can become more passive over time if you build it correctly, but in the beginning is often a second job, sometimes a third. Now let's talk about stocks. Trading fees are mostly small today. Capital gains taxes still exist, but the biggest hidden cost in the stock market has nothing to do with money, it's emotion. The average investor consistently earns less than the market itself. The market may return 9%. The average investor might capture 5% or 6%. Why? Because they buy when everything feels exciting and sell when everything feels scary. They pay the emotional tax. Every crash, every correction, every bad news cycle. Real estate investors, interestingly enough, tend to hold longer, not because they're smarter, because selling a property is difficult. You can't panic sell a building at 2 in the morning. There are agents, paperwork, delays. Ironically, the inconvenience of real estate often protects investors from themselves. Part 3. What kind of investor are you? This is the part most financial content skips, and I think it's the most important part. The best investment is the one you can stick with, period. I've known people who achieved incredible returns in real estate. They enjoy managing things. They enjoy solving problems, negotiating, walking into a property and figuring out what needs to be fixed. For them, real estate is perfect. I've also known people who tried real estate and hated every second of it. Midnight tenant calls, unexpected repairs, vacancy periods, destroying cash flow. They sold everything, bought index funds, stopped thinking about it, and slept like babies. 20 years later, they did just fine. And I've known people who put everything into stocks, watched their portfolios fall 40% during a crash, couldn't handle it emotionally, sold at the bottom, and walked away with less than they started with. Risk isn't the tool. Risk is the mismatch between the tool and the personality using it. So when people ask me which is better, my honest answer is, what kind of person are you? Do you want something tangible? Something you can drive past and say, I own that building? Do you have patience for tenants, repairs, and paperwork? Do you have capital for a down payment? If yes, real estate may be your path. Or do you prefer something hands-off, something that doesn't require active management? Do you have the emotional discipline to leave your portfolio alone when it's falling? Are you starting with smaller amounts and building gradually? If yes, stocks may be your path. And here's the truth, this is not necessarily an either-or decision. The wealthiest people I personally know use both. They're not on team real estate or team stocks. They're on team anything that works and compounds. But you have to start somewhere. And many people spend so much time trying to choose the perfect option that they never start at all. Part 4. Starting from zero. Let's talk about starting from scratch, because I suspect most people watching this are not choosing between a portfolio and a property. They're choosing between starting something and continuing to do nothing. If you have very little capital today, stocks win by default. Not because they're better, because they're accessible. You can start investing in an index fund with $50. You cannot buy real estate with $50. The barrier to entry is real. Start with stocks. Build the habit. Build the knowledge. Build the capital. Then, if it fits your personality, use that capital as a bridge into real estate later. If you have moderate capital and stable income, now you have options. Run the actual numbers. What would a rental property in your area cost? What would the rent be? What are the realistic expenses? Does the math work? If it does and your temperament fits it, consider it seriously. If the numbers don't work, don't force real estate simply because it sounds more impressive. Pride is not a financial strategy. The common denominator in both paths is time. I've never met anyone who built true financial freedom in 2 years. The people I know who no longer have to work because they don't need to work built it over 10, 15, or 20 years. Not through one brilliant move, through consistent decisions quietly compounding in the background. Real estate compounds through equity growth and reinvested rental income. Stocks compound through price appreciation and reinvested dividends. Both require the one ingredient nobody can sell you and nobody can give you: patience. My friends, here's my conclusion. Real estate or stocks, which one has made people wealthy? The honest answer is both, and neither works for people who can't stay consistent. The debate itself is often a distraction. The real question is much simpler. Are you building something, anything, starting today? Because the worst investment is not choosing the wrong asset class, it's waiting for certainty and never investing at all. There is no certainty in investing. You work with the best information available, make a decision, and stay in the game long enough for compounding to do its job. I've done both. I've made money in both. I've made mistakes in both. And trust me, few things teach lessons faster than a broken boiler in January. So let me ask you, are you team real estate, team stocks, or team both? And here's the question I'm genuinely curious about. If you had $50,000 in cash today, where would it go first? A real estate down payment? An index fund? Something completely different? Let me know in the comments. There are no wrong answers, only honest ones, because I really do read them. And your answer might inspire the next video. Take care of yourself and take even better care of your money. I'll see you in the next video.